everyone. Welcome to an episode one of what I'm calling the China Experts. And I am here interviewing with a variety of different companies and entrepreneurs that have landed in the Chinese market, who hopefully will share their experiences on what's gone right, what's gone wrong, their successes, to hopefully aid those of you that are looking to get into the Chinese market about what not to do and about what to do when getting in. So today I got Matt Wills on from Floob Creative. I always make the mistake with pronouncing the name. So Floob Creative. Thank you, Matt. Floob Creative. And we're just gonna have a very casual conversation about what brought you into China, what has worked for you, what hasn't worked for you, what are some of the mistakes that perhaps you'd like to share to encourage other companies and entrepreneurs not to do, and ultimately also how Woodburn perhaps has helped you along in the journey. So first question's up, Matt. What brought you to Shanghai? And when did you arrive?
I actually arrived in Beijing about 8 years ago. And I had been an English teacher in Japan for quite a while. And a few years prior to leaving Japan, I decided that I wanted to be a graphic designer. I started doing freelance work after I got my degree in Japan, but it felt more like a hobby than like a real job. So I started looking for internships around the world, obviously including in Japan, which were really hard to find without being a native Japanese speaker. And I eventually landed on one in Beijing, which was a somewhat horrible experience. But after that,
the first ones usually are.
Yeah. I mean, just like an hour and a half travel to work both ways, paid nothing, working in a terrible third-rate factory, all of this kind of stuff. But China is definitely the land of opportunity, and my career trajectory just absolutely soared after that. So I went from being a design intern in Beijing to being shipped to to Shanghai, sorry, by the major movie company that I was working for at the time, now as the senior design manager. So that's what brought me here. And then I worked for them for a couple of years in Shanghai. And then I was actually going to leave China, but then I got an offer to be the creative director for Dark Horse, which I could not say no to. And then I did that for 3 years. And then through all of the stuff that I learned from those 2 jobs, I eventually decided that I was kind of ready to go it on my own, and started my own company.
So when did you in the end start up your own company? This was
that was I started the company when I was still working for Dark Horse, and when I did it, it was only supposed to be kind of what I call an IP warehouse. So the point of the company was for registering one of the character IPs that I'd created for the purposes of basically marketing and licensing. And it was about 6 months after that I realized, you know what? It could just as well be a creative agency. So that's what I had always kind of planned in the back of my mind anyway. And my contract with Dark Horse was coming to an end. So I thought, you know what? I've got the contacts, I've got, enough interest from external clients that they want what I'm doing. And what I do is fairly niche. So I'll just go it alone.
And I just want to emphasize to everyone, this all happened in 2020 at the start of the pandemic. So
yeah. Yeah.
I do want to highlight all of that because the pandemic didn't come into your decision-making process. Although you were already on the ground in Shanghai, I think for you, it was just really purely a commercial decision of, I can go on this on my own. I've got clientele, and why not do it? Actually, I don't think I've ever asked you, did the pandemic make you question your decision at all, or did it come into
No,
the decision-making process?
not really,
Oh,
because we were fairly lucky in China, right? And we're also in the kind of industry that doesn't need to be interrupted um, too much by the pandemic, because we have that capability. Everything is digital, so we're working from home is not a great deal different from working in an office,
right.
or being able to deal with people face to face. So short answer, no.
Okay. And perhaps, I mean, everybody can see your background, so perhaps you can also explain your niche. What do you love to do in regards to the creative side of companies in China?
Yeah, so I started as like I said, a graphic designer in Beijing, and I thought that that was what I wanted to do. As the years went on, I progressed to the point of regression, which is to say, I realized that what I wanted to do is the same thing that I've been doing my entire life, which is create characters. From when I was, I don't know, 7, 8 years old or something, I was always like drawing characters and sketching and stuff like that. And that became kind of gradually a more common thing that I was doing at work. Like, for example, at Dark Horse, like taking their original artwork, which was quite sort of jaggedy and dark and stuff like that, and then just readapting that for the Asian market to make it more kind of cute, family friendly, Asia friendly, you could say. And yeah, I just got more and more experience with yeah, creating and in that case adapting characters, and I love it.
So it is a very unique way of also helping foreign investors with their marketing strategies, right? It's kind of building up brand mascots or these characters that truly um, um, portray the philosophy or the image that they want to create, to keep the ethnicity of what they are back home, but then developing that into the Chinese market, adapting it to the Chinese market. It's a very unique thing to think about for companies that are looking at their branding strategies and seeing whether something like that would fit into their into what they're looking to do. I love it because I love all the characters as well. Just a note here, you guys should really follow Matt on LinkedIn because he does post a lot of the characters he designs and what he does and explains about it as well. So in the descriptions, I'll be providing Matt's LinkedIn profile connection as well, so that you can easily connect to him. Matt, along your journey, people love to hear the war stories, unfortunately. Along your journey, what issues have arisen for you that impacted the business, made you maybe not sleep at night? Maybe you can name, not all of them, but maybe the top 1 or 2, where perhaps there could have been, you could have prevented it from happening.
Right. So the number one issue that I've kind of faced is basically one of education, right? So and I don't know if it's something that I could have prevented, but it's something that I've realized that needs to be done. And what I mean by education is that it's kind of all within our cultural mindset, that okay, design is important and branding is important. And as a result of the massive success of like, all the big names, Nike, Apple, Microsoft, whatever, companies are happily willing to spend thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars just on like a brand identity, like a logo. And the reason why I started this company was because I realized that, especially within China, brand mascot characters are so much more powerful than just logos, because they have that kind of human face and they talk to you and they connect with you. They can literally interact with you, like on your platforms. So I realized that. But when I was pitching to clients, especially at the start, and trying to persuade them of this thing that I had seen, they were still kind of like, well, but it's just a cartoon, isn't it? sort of like, my 14-year-old daughter draws cartoons. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm sure she does. If she can draw one that represents your brand and has all of the design thinking behind it, and you can get her to do that for free, great. She can probably design a logo too.
Right. Exactly. So actually, it was what you're trying to say is what you're trying to say, that you actually now are more educating these clients or these potential clients in what the mascot can, or the character can bring to them. Is it more this type of education where you're educating them on what it can bring?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of saying, look, if you're willing to spend $5,000, $10,000 on a logo,
exactly,
you can spend the same amount of money on a character design
that could bring you so much more.
I will give you so much more. Like, you get so many more creative assets that you can use, and two, you've got something that is actually a lot more powerful than just a logo.
Right. So this is a great synergy, because one of the superpowers I tell every client to attain is getting an education on doing business in China. And even with you in the media side or creative side of developing marketing strategies, you're also educating these clients on what works in China and what doesn't work in China, and what could actually be of more value. So education is really, really key. What else has popped up along your journey that has kind of halted you on occasion?
Well, bureaucracy is tough, as you are more than well aware. So I used you guys to set up my company, which was a blessing, because you held my hand through the whole thing and I had no idea what I was doing. That kind of thing, I set up my Hong Kong company in less than a month, like 2 weeks or something. And doing it in China, there was just so much more paperwork, so many more restrictions. I mean, it's like that with everything, with banking, with visas. It is a pain in the bum. So it does help to have people that can who've done it before, and who know how, you need to file this at this tax department. Obviously they need to be able to speak Chinese and communicate directly with the departments and stuff like that. So yeah, bureaucracy, an unavoidable kind of growing pain of China. But you can get better, I guess.
How has your experience been with working with third parties? I mean, you obviously are growing the business and you're developing a team slowly. So my assumption is you're working also with third parties along the way. What's your experience been working with these companies? Have you ever vetted them? Like, do you vet them before you start working with them? Do you know them through referrals? How do you get to meet these partners? I also want to say that about clients. We can throw in clients into that pool. Has it been easy knowing whether you're working with reliable clients? I'm not sure if I'm clear on the question, but it's working with these third parties in China. Have you had issues with them? Payment from clients, delays, or just reliability? What's been your experience on that?
So I've had all of those issues.
Okay.
Fortunately, most of those issues I experienced when I was working for the other companies, which were Chinese companies. So it wasn't that often my direct problem that I had to deal with, or something that I couldn't kind of give to one of my subordinates to sort of go and deal with. The business that I'm running at the moment, there's kind of a little bit of self-selection which works in my favor. Like I've been in China for 8 years, but my Chinese is still kind of conversational. Certainly not at the level where I can conduct a business meeting or anything like that. And also the way that I generally tend to connect with people is through people in my network that already speak English. So I get a lot of referrals, and those referrals tend to be either international companies or, let's say, internationally minded Chinese companies, where whoever I'm dealing with speaks like very passable English at a minimum. And along with that comes the an international mindset as well, which involves a little bit more transparency, a little bit more trust. And if I say to a foreign client, look, there's a 40% down payment, I can rely on that happening,
Right.
And we're not going to haggle over every single yuan.
Right.
Yeah, every single cent. So yeah, that's been the advantage of working for myself now.
I know you're the business owner, but you're obviously on the ground in Shanghai, and I don't know if you have the ability to answer this question or not, but how key has it been for you to be on the ground in Shanghai? With borders being shut, you're obviously now sequestered in China, where you probably aren't going to leave until the borders are open, because it's difficult to come back in. But what has that experience been like, being on the ground? Do you feel that has truly facilitated the business? And what would be your recommendation to companies that can't come, right? So the leaders physically can't get into China right now. Visas aren't being issued. They're going to have to do the quarantine. And Matt and I were just talking about our quarantine experiences prior to this call, which is something that we both don't recommend people going through. What can you add to that, about being on the ground, being physically on the ground?
Okay, so I run a creative services agency that for the most part can be done digitally, right? And just online through meetings and stuff like that. However, being on the ground is so important that I will not leave until the business is absolutely thriving. I go and meet people face to face 3 days a week minimum, and there is a lot of value in being able to
do this face to face
to somebody. Yeah. I mean, you can do it. You can do it over Zoom. That has like really helped. And I do have international clients where I am Zooming with them. But
I suppose the educational component, when you're educating people on the value of developing these characters, it's probably really important that you do it face to face.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
But more than that, it's just about sort of establishing that personal connection and that trust,
right.
Where they're not just like this image on the screen,
right?
And you can just get so much further with people when you can meet them face to face, and they can see that that you're a real person, and that you seem trustworthy and all of that kind of stuff. So with regards to the second part of your question, what would I recommend for companies that can't come over? I'm not sure what to say other than find somebody who is on the ground
To
who
represent you.
you can
Yeah.
trust. Yeah.
Yeah. And to represent you in building up the business and the connections. And one thing I love by what you have said is, because this is another superpower that I tell companies they have to create, is creating an ecosystem or a network of people.
Absolutely. 100%.
And
100%. Yeah.
and it's not just a network of potential clients, it's a network of friends, of partners, of chambers, of it's so much more than just clients. And I want to reemphasize that on this, if you don't mind, because you know, you're gonna know something through somebody else. I mean, that's how China works. You talk to somebody at a networking event, you learn
I
a
know
little
a guy.
something.
I know a guy.
Exactly.
I know a guy.
Exactly. Let me give you his WeChat ID, right? And then you start having these types of conversations.
That happened to me yesterday.
Right. So it happens every day. I mean, it just
Yeah.
simply happens every day. So I think two things I'm definitely getting away from this is educating. Well, I think educating yourself on how to do business in China, but then educating your clients on the actual service you're offering and how it could scale up the business of anybody in China. And then this
Right.
ecosystem thing, I think is fundamental. I don't want to take too much more of your time, but I want to just ask, you know, I don't want to stick on the pain points. What have been your successes? We never focus on the success of somebody's business, but you've been in this now 2 years. So it's still a baby. You're still up in your startup phase, right?
Yeah.
But so far, what have been your successes? I put you on the spot, Matt.
Yeah, you have, and you're right in saying that everybody remembers the more painful moments than they do the more pleasant ones. I've met like so many people during this kind of process that it has sort of expanded the scope of where we're going so much that it's really evolved from just being a kind of simple creative services sort of model to there's so much more that we can do in this. Like I have for example, I have 2 NFT projects that are kicking off next week. I have probably 3 more that might happen. That's just NFTs.
And
I've got
NFTs was not something that you were thinking about at all at the beginning. I mean, this is just something very new that's come in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another project that's sort of on its way, which is another thing that I never considered doing, was shopping mall exhibitions using my own my own brand mascot character. We're now getting to the point where we can license that out to other companies who find it attractive. And yeah, we're dealing with like a major shopping mall client in Beijing who's going out to basically sell my character for me and create like 3D exhibitions in shopping malls, which is just amazing, you know.
Sure. Yeah. It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah. And it's
how did you start? How did you start the conversation? You went to Beijing on an internship and then realized that it was the land of opportunities. And you're learning day by day what other new opportunities exist, right?
Every day is a new opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think people need to realize what really is the potential of the market and what are the possibilities. So I am going to tweak a little bit about how Woodburn has helped you, just to finish off today. This wouldn't be a testimonial if I didn't put that inside. So just along your journey, how has Woodburn helped you? How have we helped you in the last 18 months, 2 years to help you scale up?
Single word, it's just easy. Like there's just you know, there's all the stuff that I didn't know when I was starting out, like both stuff that some of your potential clients already know, like basic accounting practices and stuff like that,
Yeah.
which I didn't, but I could just give that to you guys and take care of it. But especially like with like dealing with China, right? So being able to speak with a native English speaker in terms that I can understand, without having any kind of expertise in setting up a company or basic practices. Plus, you've given me a lot of free tutorials, basically, like in terms of how to structure things. My marketing plan basically came from you. And
I just want to emphasize, I'm not a marketing person, but I know the basics.
No, but it works. It
was
works.
a starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, just dealing with the local climate here, and having, you know, Sally, your right-hand woman, kind of take care of everything that needs to be taken care of. Anything that I don't understand gets explained in a language that I can understand. And yeah, ease.
Amazing. I just want to let everyone know, this just popped into my head. Matt is going to be joining us for a webinar series on branding that we're going to be doing, I believe it's in May. So stay tuned for that, because I am putting that all together. And if you want to learn more about what he does, and he goes into some wonderful case studies as well, do watch out for that, because you'll learn a lot more about how you can add. Well, I mean, you can even talk more about NFTs and other things than you did a year ago on our webinar. But it will be really, really exciting, and it might give you ideas on how you can develop your branding strategy or your marketing strategy in China, what possibilities there are in expanding on it, to be able to get into the Chinese consumer mind. So Matt, I'm going to hold you to something. I would love to have you back on in maybe 6 months, 12 months to see where you are and what other problems you might have encompassed along your journey. But I think it would be fun to kind of see how you're progressing year on year, and catch up, and maybe give the audience a little bit of an idea also, how things are developing in this pandemic world where, you know, you're staying put, and giving a little insight on that as well. So thanks for joining. Thanks for sharing.
Pleasure.
And see you soon. And good luck.
That's good. Thanks a lot.